Welcome, everyone. I am Tom Giordano, a professor of accounting at the University of Maine at Augusta, and the host of today's podcast, Where Are They Now? In this podcast series, we revisit with UMA graduates and learn how they decided to pursue their college education, what their experience was like as a student, and then what they've been up to since graduation. And today I'd like you to meet Rion Turner, a 2020 graduate of UMA's business program. Rion, on behalf of the UMA community, a warm welcome back.
It's great to be back. Thanks for the invitation.
Hey, Rion, so let's dive right in and tell us, how did you wind up coming to UMA?
So I grew up in Southern California, went into the Army right after school, was stationed in Germany. After getting out of the Army, I moved back to Germany, where I worked in the hospitality and restaurant business for many years. So at just about 40, I decided I wanted a change. So I looked for opportunities to move back to the U.S. and maybe go to school. My sister mentioned this quirky little school in Augusta, Maine.
Right.
UMA, University of Maine at Augusta. She said they were quite good with veterans and non-traditional students. I didn't know what a non-traditional student was. I was like, what the heck is that? You're either a student or not. I would later learn these non-traditional students are maybe folks that are going back to school, maybe at 30 or 40 or have gone through some things in life and experience and decided they wanted to change. So that fit really well. So in 2015, I moved to Randolph, Maine from Berlin, Germany, and began my adventure.
A little bit of a cultural shift, I would say.
Just slightly.
Tell us, what was that like when you started out at UMA?
So, funny story, the first day, probably due to my gray hair, or the gray hair that I used to have, I was mistaken for a professor, and I had to explain, no, I'm here just like you to learn. But besides that, I discovered pretty quickly that I needed to brush up on some math skills and began getting tutoring at the math lab run by the Department of Student Success. This helped tremendously. Not only did I discover I was pretty good at math, I was actually offered a job as a student tutor myself. So the math lab turned into my happy place. Connecting and helping with students was very rewarding.
Oh, that's so cool, right? Giving back to the community right at the outset. Yeah, very cool. What else stood out to you regarding the curriculum or any specific courses that you had been taking at UMA?
Right. So there were two courses that I really enjoyed that had a big impact on my entire education. One was organizational behavior, the other the Capstone of the entire program, both taught by Brenda McAleer, the Dean of Professional Studies. And in the Capstone, we actually did a SWOT analysis looking at the strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities, analyzing University of Maine at Augusta as an organization. And we came to the conclusion that UMA had the opportunity to offer graduate programs and maybe invest in dorms. And lo and behold, a few years later, today, I look around and we have graduate programs and dorms.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, and we're so proud of those two opportunities here at UMA that we developed. Well, we can give you guys credit in that class, Rion, for starting us down that path. Thanks. All right, Rion, so there you were, heading to the home stretch of your education at UMA, and what was on your mind thinking about the career path that you wanted to take?
Right. So in my junior and senior year, concurrent to going to school, I also worked for the state of Maine, the Office of Professional and Financial Regulation and Licensing, and it was a great experience, but I knew that wasn't quite why I was going to school. I really was looking for something more in a business domain. I tried a couple different administrative type jobs with the state, but they just didn't quite do it for me. I had a relative who had worked for Bath Iron Works for several years as a surveyor. And he said, Rion, why don't you try a job out here? Why don't you apply? There's a bunch of jobs open. And I was like, What are you talking about, man? You don't want me welding or bending metal. That ship is not going to float. That's just a bad idea. And he explained, no. Of course, we've got, administrative type jobs. He just noticed that there were a couple buyer positions open and an estimator job open. And so that's exactly what I did. I applied for an estimator job that worked out really well. And that's where I have been to this day. Actually promoted a couple times. And now I have real interesting work. I'm one of the folks responsible for creating cost proposals for the DDG 51 destroyer programs, maintenance, updates, and repairs. So it's pretty good.
Oh, awesome. So, Ryan, my understanding is that you went on to earn your master's degree. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, absolutely. So I was thrilled to have completed my bachelor's program, and this was just in 2020, the time of COVID. And I thought, hey, maybe you can go for that MBA. That seemed like a few years earlier something that would be pie in the sky, but that pie was right there for me, just right there for the taking. And that's exactly what I did. I applied to the MBA program in Orono, Maine, at University of Maine, and I got accepted. Did most of my program online, so it was very convenient to do that while working full-time. Instead of 2 years, it did take me 4, but I would realize very quickly I was well-equipped with my undergraduate at UMA to hang with the best of them, with the smartest of them at University of Maine in the graduate program. And, the graduate program was a little bit more difficult. We went into a bit more theory than we did the undergraduate. But, it was a great experience. I'm so glad I did that. Also, Bath Iron Works financially offered some support to the MBA. And, I finished that in 2024.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Ryan, as we get to the home stretch of our talk today, I was thinking, what advice do you have for any potential students who may be listening to our podcast today, or even our existing students? Any recommendations that you have for them as they're in the midst of their education or thinking about pursuing an education at UMA?
Absolutely. Probably 3 off the top of my head. One would be pursue a practical education. And I feel like I received that at UMA and UMO. Many of the concepts, theories, and practical exercises that I had in my undergraduate and graduate program help me in my daily job now, right? And that's pretty powerful. In addition, I would say spend some time exercising those Excel chops. I spend at least 8 hours a day in Excel. Anything nowadays in business, especially finance, you will need Excel skills. And the third thing would be something really more of a personal life experience. When I was back in Berlin all those years ago, speaking to one of my bosses, actually the boss of my boss of my boss, she said, Ryan, you either love it, you change it, or you leave it. If you don't love what you're doing, change what you're doing. And if you don't have the power to change it, then you leave it. And that's exactly what I did. I wasn't happy with my situation there in Berlin all those years ago. I didn't have the power to change it, so I left it and I began a new journey that for me started with education. And all these years later, maybe a good 10-something years later, I gotta say I really love my life. It's pretty darn good.
All right. I loved this interview with you today, Ryan. So thanks so much for joining us and coming back to UMA for a visit.
It was my pleasure. Anytime at all.
All right. And so there you have it, folks. First in the podcast series of Where Are They Now?, where we learn about our graduates from UMA. And there's Rion Turner's story, 10 years in 10 minutes. Stay tuned for more in this podcast series as UMA celebrates its 60th year anniversary.